Incredible news, because late last week we got a Steinhoff conviction, people, and it was massive. Former Steinhoff CFO Ben Grange was convicted of cooking a fake invoice to the value of 376 million rand for Marcus Jooste. And he entered into a plea deal with the National Prosecuting Authority to turn state witness, which the NPA can use to pursue other Steinhoff criminals. Now, white people, I know we don't like this story. I know we love a good black face on a corruption story, white people, and a white face makes us feel all awkward and weird, like we might be a part of the problem. I promise you, we can go back to bashing BEE in a second, but the story is important, okay? The Steinhoff crisis hurt white people too, so we're going to talk about it. Are we good?
Hey, we're so good.
Oh, we're good. If you've been living under a rock the size of Gwede Mantashe, here's why this Steinhoff breakthrough is such a big deal. One thing about that Gwede picture, people, he ate. I waited for you for that. Steinhoff started as a furniture company run by Marcus Jooste. The company rapidly, almost unbelievably, exploded in value and took off and took over all over the world, buying major chains of furniture stores and other companies in some of the world's biggest markets. Marcus Jooste was seen as some kind of business genius who could turn water into the most delicious Cape Winelands vino. And then we found out it was all nonsense. The Steinhoff wine was nothing but snake oil sold by a truly generational snake oil salesman, Marcus Jooste. The books were cooked. The numbers were cooked. They were faking their revenue and profits reports and extracting absurd sums of money from investors based on nonsense balance sheets, fake transactions, shell front companies. But over the years, more and more people began to question the snake oil vino, and then investigators got into Steinhoff, and Steinhoff quickly came tumbling down. Steinhoff's collapse had a disastrous effect on South Africa, people. Steinhoff lost 98% of its value, and pension funds had been invested in Steinhoff. So many everyday South Africans had their pensions affected. South Africa's Public Investment Corporation has the job of investing in South African businesses using public funds. The PIC invested around 20 billion rand into Steinhoff, and all of that went up in smoke. Steinhoff's collapse absolutely smashed the Johannesburg Stock Exchange and destroyed international and local investor confidence in South Africa. The JSE lost 200 billion rands worth of value from our economy, from one company. And ever since then, we've been trying to process and understand the scale of the crime, the scale of the disaster, even as the old Steinhoff big guns have been doing everything possible to keep it all hidden. As you know, Marcus Jooste is dead, and in the last few years, our National Prosecuting Authority has been trying to get prominent ex-Steinhoff leaders to flip. And finally, last week, they got a big one. Andries Ben Grange was Chief Financial Officer of Steinhoff for years. And last Thursday, Grange pleaded guilty to cooking an invoice worth, I'm going to try and read this number, 376,649,872 of your best South African rands, people. From one invoice. Just one invoice. Do you understand the scale of the Steinhoff criminal enterprise? That one single cooked invoice was worth 376,649,872 rand, people. Apparently, this cooked invoice happened when Grange was traveling with Marcus Jooste on a private plane. And again, just so you can understand how casual this small, for Steinhoff, cooked invoice was worth, hundreds of millions of rands, how small it was in the grander scheme of things, Marcus Jooste apparently wrote the instruction to cook this invoice on a scrap of paper. He wrote Grange a note the way school kids write Valentines for 376,649,872 rand. So, Ben Grange pleaded guilty and was convicted, and he's entered a plea deal with the state, meaning that he will turn state witness and provide testimony under oath to the NPA that will provide the NPA information they can use to go after other Steinhoff big guns. Does that make sense? For that, he will get 5 years in jail with another 5 years suspended. Now, I know that that sounds like way too small a punishment. Only 5 years. But the NPA has decided it's a fair exchange for the information that Grange has and will give them. Remember, with plea deals, they don't strike the deal and then find out what information they're going to get. They would have been negotiating with Grange for ages and ultimately agreed on the deal once they and Grange agreed on what information he would put on the record under oath. So this is a potentially massive deal for the NPA in its quest to catch all of the Steinhoff criminals. And the other thing about Steinhoff investigations is that if they go well, that can result in South Africa getting some of our money back that we lost. In the last few weeks, the NPA has also managed to convict Gerhardus Burger. He is one of the 4 people who Marcus Jooste SMS'd to tell them that Steinhoff was about to collapse before it did. It's known as the most expensive SMS in history because they read the SMS, then they sold their Steinhoff shares, meaning that they didn't lose their money from the collapse. Getting privileged information from someone involved in a company about changes to share value is called insider trading, and it's illegal. So Gerhardus Burger was convicted, and all the money that he made from selling those shares years ago is being given back to the government, the state, which is great. Yes, actually, that does deserve a woo. That's great. He is also being made to testify for the state or face further serious punishment. And all of this is such a good sign that the National Prosecuting Authority is getting back on its feet after being shambocked by state capture. They're also making progress in cases against alleged state capture figures like the ANC's Ace Magashule, Nosiviwe Mapisa-Nqakula, and Zizi Kodwa. And long may the NPA's rebuild continue, because to be a strong country, we need a strong big crime fighting organization, and that's the National Prosecuting Authority.